All right.
All right. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
No worries.
So
Go.
there, as we know, artificial intelligence is a complex global challenge driven by the leaps and bounds of its progress in the past decades. So as it continues to evolve, it increasingly integrated into every aspect of human life. So as we heard earlier, there was a question about AI and medical practice, or AI and or tools for medical education. So my topic, as I've said, it's more of an overarching one, and coming from a development sector, I'll be sharing some background information which possibly you're aware of, but hopefully we'll be able to relate it with you in the ground. So as to the sequence, we have the urgency, the background, the urgency of AI readiness, policy frameworks for AI integration, and then building the infrastructure for adoption, and then data ethics for AI powered education, some challenges, and some suggestion for way forward. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's the topic, the urgency on AI readiness. So, having noted that there are so many developments globally, regionally, Southeast Asian region in particular, and of course, the different context of the different country as to where they are in AI. Further, how are the more general policies available in each country are cascaded to the higher education institution, to the school, the different school, and how this matter in the development of their own framework. I well earlier, or I think the very first framework on higher education institution on AI integration, the one I first heard is from Silliman University, while from the UP Open University provided a framework or more of guidelines, ethical guidelines for AI integration. But of course, that this information, there might be other universities as well who have done their framework on AI. But of course, it's a matter of how accessible are those framework to the public. All right, next slide, please. All right, so with here, the AI is has transformational role across the sector. As I've said, we've developed a framework on multi-sectoral collaboration on AI integration. The very the very premise of that particular framework is that there is a need indeed to collaborate. No, the different sectors should not be operating in silos, but instead we, the different sector, private sector, public sector, of course, the developers, the industry, the academe, should be collaborating so that a proper or a more appropriate way of integrating AI to education can be done. So as AI continue to evolve, it increasingly integrated in every aspect of human life, and also economically, it holds potential contribution to our GDP and in the region, Southeast Asian region by 2030, and so that represent an increased GDP. Further, we can also see that as simple as like there are higher education that have developed their framework, they're very much attuned with how AI should be integrated in their system, in their education system, or in their university. There is also, so the development or the range of action towards AI integration vary. That's also happening in the region as there are uneven stages of AI adoption in Southeast Asia. So as expected, or as we usually know, Singapore always heads in terms of the development, not only on learning outcome, not only on how they improve their education system, but also in this particular state AI integration, no, in this particular phenomenon of integrating AI to education. While the Philippines is not at the bottom, in the development of AI, in the adoption of AI, we're not also heading. Okay, it's well, as far as the literature is concerned, we have Singapore, we have Malaysia, heading the AI integration or the adoption of AI, not only in education but in other fields. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm quite sad because this particular slide is very interesting. While it's flashing in the what do you call this PowerPoint format, it's actually moving just to show that everything is moving fast. Okay, and so the future of AI is anticipated to outperform today's AI. So let's say we are just merely adjusting to the particular tool or artificial intelligence way, I mean adapting to a tool of AI now, but then this particular tool will definitely be outperformed because there's the future AI or future tool. There has been continuous development, continuous progress, continuous improvement, no, as far as AI is concerned. So there has been accelerating changes, and that even posed a question about expertise. Our expertise become limited. So the challenge for us is to really adapt and to be open to change. I used to say when I was teaching, no, I left the university 10 years ago and I joined the development sector. I always say to my student, I think at the beginning of the class, I mentioned that gone are the days of complacency. So that time it was only technology, right? Typical tool, not necessarily AI, not necessarily artificial intelligence, but those tools that are available, plus the fact that there are different ways to upskill ourselves. So again, with the fusion of artificial intelligence and micro credential, I think it would be very helpful on how we could continue to hone our expertise. And so with that, the phase of change become uneven, concentrated. So as we saw in the earlier slides, in Southeast Asia, the movement or rather the development of artificial intelligence is really uneven. And sometimes it's even concentrated and unpredictable. Like recently there was like not massive, but I should say Vietnam is also trying to catch up with those who are developing fast in terms of artificial intelligence. So these things are unpredictable. And as I've said, it could also be concentrated because we all know that artificial intelligence is a product or it came from the global south. So with that, there is concentrated progress and development of artificial intelligence in those area, in the global north, sorry, not global south. We're part of the global south, but the technology, artificial intelligence come from the global north. And it posed also a lot of questions and a lot of challenges as well. Next slide, please. So on the digital divide, so we've been hearing about divide, no? We've been hearing about uneven progress. We've been hearing about the poor and the rich country, the developed, underdeveloped. And as I mentioned, this AI technology is a product or came from the global north, and that even exacerbates inequality. And so, like us, we're part of the so-called global south and many other developing or poor countries. So again, it posit a challenge, an issue, and concern. So while they are developing, while they are progressing, then we are catching up. But I still hope I am still hoping that there could be unpredictable development. Who knows? No, with all the efforts being done within the global south, it could be it can catch up with the development in the global north. Now, so in doing so, there are stages. So we access all this AI technology, we use it, we become proficient to it. And along with that, there has to be a change on mindset regarding the use of this technology so that we can somehow address the so-called digital divide. And there's a need, therefore, for providing guidance and creating safe AI zones. So I'll explain more of that later. And proactive supervision is a key. I would like to point out what Dr. Didit said. No, I mean, based on her presentation, it's no longer I think for the for the higher education sector, and even in basic education, we cannot control no the students to use artificial intelligence. And so therefore, by being proactive and providing supervision, this is the key, so that we can monitor, of course, how our students are using artificial intelligence. So that brings me to the next portion, which is changing education. So, of course, there's a need, and that's the very reason why you are all here, is because we want to have a strategy. We need to learn on how we can adopt artificial intelligence to the education system. So as I've said, there's a need to offer guidance in the use of artificial intelligence and not a prohibition. I remember one point in time wherein the students, basic education, were not allowed to bring gadget. But eventually, especially the private sector, because it's become very useful in the teaching and learning process, they were allowed to bring gadgets. But of course, it's more of a guidance. I think what were needed then back then, no, the guidance on what should be accessed while they have the gadget during class. So that's still connected or related to how guidance can be provided to the use of artificial intelligence. So we have to foster a new relationship with knowledge. So how do we really what do we consider knowledge at this point, given the advent, or given the use of artificial intelligence? Is it whose knowledge? So it's a question of attribution. So when you publish, for example, like again pointing to the example of Ma'am Didit, she said that there was this publication, and then it was not her who developed it, but the name was there. And so again, proper attribution, how these things are happen, how do you address things like that? So again, we have to foster a new relationship with knowledge. And so that should be evident as well within the teaching and learning process by the use of the different pedagogical approach. So there are pedagogical approach that we've been using. So can you imagine if I'm using AI in the classroom and we have a mandated, this is for basic education, there is a law a mandating basic education to use specific pedagogical approaches. So, how do teachers align the use of AI with those pedagogical approaches? So that's really a big challenge, and that also point to the need to train teachers. So, educational institutions should provide AI frameworks. So that's one strategy. As I mentioned earlier, Silliman University developed their framework on AI integration in higher education. So, but the point, there are existing framework already. We have frameworks from UNESCO. So how would our framework be different? I think what would matter is how we contextualize that framework within our own practice, within the practice of certain higher education institution. There could be similarities, but of course there is variation, and that should be captured by the AI framework that will be developed by the university or certain university. I recall there's also I accessed recently one framework by Mariano Marcos University, but I think it's that one that I access is on it's an earlier stage of development. Anyway, there's already an attempt, and that is something that should be celebrated. Now, there's a continuing monitoring of changes in labor demand. And this is what our regional framework, the one that we've been doing, me and my team have been doing, and hopefully will be presented also in the ASEAN meetings, is ASEAN Summit by next year, and the higher education official meeting for the ASEAN by November. We will be concentrating on the labor demand, the use of artificial intelligence, and how education could be agile in addressing labor demands given the use of artificial intelligence. All right, it's a long journey and it's more broad at this point in time, but I think the challenge more we could provide policy on our end. We can guide the policy development being part of the ASEAN region development sector. But then again, the challenge still is the concretization, the practical application of the policies into the real arena of education. So again, as part of the changing education, there's a need to distinguish between amplifying and automating tasks. I think the question earlier on how do administrators or are there I forgot exactly, but for the administrators, are there particular tools in using AI in what they're doing? So within the gamut of the different activities of education institution, I think there should be ways by which we identify what tasks should be automated, or even siguro let's put it on the context of teachers if they are doing lesson plan. What are those different activities that can be relegated to AI or somehow can be done with the use of AI? And at the same time, activities like amplifying the output through the use of AI. In again doing research, for example, since I know for higher education there, of course, research is one of its function as part of the trifocal function. We do amplify what we know through the use of artificial intelligence as we develop our, let's say, in research, our review of literature. And it was pretty interesting earlier, Dr. Didit cited that it is through Note something, Note L. She cited one tool wherein you can listen to the literature instead of reading it into to, or like at least you will be given by AI some idea of what is this reading all about. So when you read, it's a lot easier for you to make sense of the reading. So in this way, you are amplifying your use of, or rather amplifying your knowledge and information through the artificial intelligence. And so with all these things, what then is needed? Next slide, please. So it's on AI governance. So AI governance, so the industry seek guidance from the regulators. I just would like to go back to what I cited earlier on the multi-sectoral AI integration of education to education. So as I've said, the premise of that is all the sectors should work together so that we could come up with appropriate tools for education. Um, the AI industry should seek guidance not only for the from the regulators, but at the same time to those users of tools. Um, because of course there might be generic there are generic tools, but it would be good if the tools are really contextualized for personalized learning, for example, or tools that are really needed by the kind of by certain types of learners. So of course that is difficult to do, but I think what is important is more of the industry and academe partnership for this particular tool development on AI. So articulate industry standards, national regulation. So this is part of AI governance more on the higher level. So there's a need to articulate industry standards, national regulation, and even international coordination. Part of it, the National AI Agency, Super Agency, and the regulation should follow consultation. So with this AI governance, and I think I'm talking more of the overarching, we have, if our country at the national level, different country in Southeast Asia, for example, in the region or even the world, this national regulation, there has to be coordination from what were developed. That's why it's very important that we are aware what are the existing policies that have already been there or published, accessible, so that we could align the national level. So forget about so global, then there's the regional level, then we have the national level aligning those standards to our own implementation in education. So the regulation should follow consultation. That's one thing. The regional framework that we will be developing would definitely involve different ministries of education. Sometimes July, we will be convening the ministers of education in Southeast Asia as part of way by which we could consult them on the development of the regional policy. Also, there has to be a focus on understanding what are the information available in terms of infrastructure, data, the teams that have been doing the different research in line with artificial intelligence. And of course, the short-term and long-term unintended consequences. Na-mention na yung plagiarism, for example. So this is a very big concern, of course, especially in education. Next slide, please. All right, so this is more of a timeline, and I think Dr. Didit already mentioned this. So the first one, she was very specific in 1956. There was a development already. That was the first artificial intelligence. The first, it was here. It's at the middle, but yeah, in the 1950s, the first one that developed is a small robotic mouse that could navigate a simple maze and remember its course. So that name, the Seiyus. And then, progress happened, and so up to the point wherein we have first microprocessor, the first phone that we had that is more of AI. So if you would notice, like 20 years ago, the phones or mobile phones, for example, they're so big, and then a very small screen, and it evolved through time. Actually, it's very fast in terms of development. It has adapted, and we have adapted ourselves in the use of those gadgets. All right. So the thing that is being pointed is mabilis yung pagbabago, and how do we really align ourselves with all these changes? Next slide, please. All right. So with this, there was a study on how AI has really improved using the different way or parameters by which they can do reading comprehension, image recognition, language understanding, handwriting recognition, speech recognition, and then predictive reasoning. However, something that can be, we should be happy about, while they are good with all this way of testing, no, na parang it's a lot easier for them to adapt. There are also performance on the part of AI that may not be at par with the human intelligence. So that's why we have things like hallucination, or like some misinformation Pero yon, the thing is, it should be a challenge on our part. How do we detect? And linking again to the earlier discussion, what 21st century skills would matter at this point is really the critical thinking, because the student should be able to identify if AI is hallucinating, AI is giving misinformation, disinformation, especially in this time of election, right? So we have to exercise that critical thinking, and as we go along, critical thinking is of course is paramount in terms of the education, what we want to develop among our student with our students, or what we want our student to learn primarily. So, okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I think we should not be disheartened because teachers are not or the teaching profession, they are very far from, this data shows that teaching profession is very far from being disrupted, being insulated. It's more of being augmented. So I think we have a rich discussion from Dr. Didit earlier on how education, the teaching learning process, the education endeavor can be augmented by artificial intelligence, from that of the lesson planning, classroom management, delivering instruction, grading assignment, developing. I like the example or the video on giving feedback, right? So that brought rather that made me reflect on how we can check our submission, because Simyo Innotech is giving, I'm announcing for the higher education institution. We have, if you're not yet aware of, we have research ethics grant. We call it for now SIRPG, Simyo Innotech Research Partnership Grant. It's an institutional partnership wherein we call for proposal. And the example earlier of getting feedback, that would, because we received a lot of submission for the grant. However, we only can give like two, maximum of four grant for a certain year, depending on the team. So we also advertise what is the team for this grant. But it's very interesting that there are ways by which we can also lighten our work, because it's very difficult to come up with feedback and monitor as well the progress of the research that is being done under the research grant. Anyway, so nasingit ko pa ang plugging ng aming research grant. All right, next slide, please. My unit is also handling that, so that's why I'm trying to connect. So this one, these are some of the benefits of artificial intelligence in education. So I think this is much discussed, especially in the earlier presentation. So next slide, please. Maybe what I could point out is engagement of students. So again, as we all know, it's very difficult to capture the interest of our students, and having more, siguro mas lively presentation, or if you like, mas attractive na PowerPoint, if you're using PowerPoint in your classroom. Of course, with the use of AI, we can easily generate that. So here we are going to show those are the things, those are the developments, and I think it's very important also to look at the policy, existing policy framework for AI integration, globally, regionally, and nationally. So next slide, please. At the global level, so it was UNESCO who released a Beijing Consensus on AI and education. So this is the very first one of the very first document on AI integration in education, followed by AI and education guidance for policymakers, then recommendation on ethics of AI, then guidance for generative AI in education and research, and then AI competency framework for teachers and students. It's very interesting. There's something that you can download, of course, from the UNESCO website. So we have an existing framework for AI competency for teachers and students. So how could my framework let's say if I'm from higher education institution, the AI that the framework that I'll be developing be different with your own context. All right, next slide, please. So this is the status on AI policy making progress in the ASEAN. So these are more of the country. Other countries, they're at the early stage, like Lao PDR, Myanmar, Timor-Leste, for example. They're not really into it. Maybe they're just started to develop. But concretely, the dark shades here are more of the firm document available, AI national strategy, AI guidance, and AI guidelines. So they are readily available now. It's firmly available. And also with the AI upskilling initiatives. So you can easily get those information. However, the light blue, I don't know how it appears to you, but yeah, it's also a shade of blue, which is lighter than the other one. They are at the beginning stage, and so they have just started. Some countries just started on AI guidelines, but definitely for Malaysia, maybe it's done already by this time. But it was only in August 2024, so possibly this light blue has already improved, or maybe who knows, it might have be they have reached the stage of completion at this point, perhaps. All right, next slide, please. All right, for the Philippines, and meaning, the Philippines is not at the bottom in terms of the use of artificial intelligence. So our government support the artificial in the use of artificial intelligence. So through DTI, we have the so-called National AI Strategy for the Philippines, available online. So it provides direction for national AI integration efforts, and it also identify 42 strategic tasks and distribute them to pertinent government bodies. And also for DOST, it provides they have the roadmap and sectoral plan, which provides a direction for national AI integration as well, focusing on different sectors. So if you could notice, there's no education there. So I think it's an opportunity that there has to be a roadmap and a sectoral plan, a plan for the for education on AI integration. So all these things for DOST, they have identified also 42 strategic tasks and distribute them to pertinent government offices as well. Next slide, please. Sorry. Okay, so this is more of the how the national AI strategy developed by NEDA. The NEDA has changed its name to Department of Development, DEV na sila ngayon. And so they have developed this national AI strategy pillars, dimension, imperative task. So through the DTI as well, collaboration with the DTI. So there you go. Next slide, please. Okay, so with all this initiative from the global level, regional level, different countries, the national level, we have also, of course, within the different education level, the Department of Education has implemented a corresponding, or rather comprehensive digital education program. So ang DepEd, aside from the technology office, they have the future office also, largely dealing with all this innovation. It's, I think, future innovation office, a future office. I forgot exactly the name, but this is basically dealing on innovation, and particularly, of course, the artificial intelligence. And then so they focuses their initiative on focusing integrating technology into educational system through the development of digital resources and training of teachers. Also with the Commission of Higher Education, they have Smart Campus Initiative, they have the revision of the curriculum, retraining, upskilling of graduates, restructuring technical panels and committees to enhance the quality and relevance of academic programs. So you've noticed they've changed the composition of many of its technical panels. No? So I've met some from those under artificial intelligence or technology related. So yeah, um, we have the TechBook, of course, Tesla, sorry. They have a lot of AI-driven programs that offer personalized pathways for skills. And also they prioritizes digitalization and prepares the workforce for Industry 4.0. I think rather Tesla has a lot of work, no, of integrating artificial intelligence to with what they are doing. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so this is to highlight also that it was the University of the Philippines, Open University, who first released the principle for responsible and trustworthy artificial intelligence. So they have released the guidelines, the principles, the use of AI in the classroom and even in research and entire gamut of education. Just to share you one strategy, well, at least in the experience of my daughter, one strategy that they use, like let's say in the first day of classes during the first semester, there's this particular subject, they were allowed to use artificial intelligence. And so with that, the teacher, first day of classes, asked the student to write an essay. And so with that, that's the basis of the teacher of the extent or rather the way or the nature of writing of the student. And so with that, they are allowed. So it was announced that you are allowed to use an AI in in this particular class. But then the teacher has already a basis. So this is the way by which this particular student write. And so if he submit an essay which is very far from the way she writes the first day of the semester. So there is, again, this become a flag on the part of the teacher in checking the output of the student. Um, and of course, there are ways to catch if the student is has plagiarized or if there are portion copied into to by the student. In fact, even their classmates were allowed to check the submission of their classmate, and that happened also to my other daughter. She submitted in their dashboards particular output, and then so happened that she catch that her classmate copied her work. So what the student did, I think the output of my daughter, that student put that to AI and came up with his output or her output. Now, so my daughter was able to detect that. And so what she did is inform the teacher. And so that student admitted that that's exactly what he or she did. No? I did not reveal the gender. But then, of course, it was dealt accordingly by the teacher in that particular class. So what we are saying here, this is the University of the Philippines, and then, you know, in the, with artificial intelligence, it's very tempting, to submit output that is not done by the student himself or herself, so that you can be eased by all this requirement. So again, it's a question of how do we deal with this. All right, next slide, please. So in the private sector, just to cite, startups such as EduSuites are developing innovative AI-driven solution classroom. So ito na ngayon sinasabi, there are so many in the private sector, in the industry, there are many software, many tools that are being developed, but it would be very good if they collaborate with the education sector before in the development itself. So it is aligned with the need of the end user. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I'm sharing here with you what ASEAN pillars So these are four assessment pillars based on ASEAN AI Responsible Roadmap. And then the other one, the right side, is again an end product of a research known as the AI Ecological Education Policy Framework. So how do we deal with this? From that off, the left side and the assessment of the different pillars, how do we make sense of all this internal governance structure measure, as mentioned, no, in the roadmap, the human-centric and centricity and involvement, risk operation management, stakeholders, interaction, communication. So how do we factor in this in um, the teaching and learning process, or what we are doing in the gamut of the education, the entire gamut of education practices? So the governance dimension of education, the teaching, learning, the operation, it has to be integrated as we develop a framework for AI integration in your university, or even perhaps in school, if there's this, if you want to make an attempt, for example, in basic education. But I could see it more being done in higher education, wherein governance dimension has to be taken into account. How do the senior management um, in terms of understanding, identifying the different, can, but basically what is being pointed out is on the actions of our leaders on how they can lead in the integration of technology, or rather artificial intelligence. So it's more of understanding, identifying, and preventing academic misconduct. So at the level of governance, what can be developed? Again, guidance is very important, very important, so that the misconduct and ethical dilemma can be addressed. To address governance on AI, so data privacy, transparency, and accountability should be taken into account, proper attribution, ensuring that equity in access on AI should be taken into consideration. And so, of course, the operational dimension, monitoring and evaluation, providing training and support for teachers and staff and students for AI literacy, and of course, the pedagogical dimensions for teachers. So there is indeed a challenge on rethinking assessment. So let's say what I've been reading is that, of course, I'm no longer in practice, but this is really a challenge. How do we really assess, or how can we have an authentic assessment given the different tools of artificial, or the different artificial intelligence tools that are accessible to our students? How do we come up with um, uh, types of assessment that we could say really indeed the students have improved, or this student has acquired certain kind of knowledge? So it's very challenging that we adjust our assessment as to how, of course, again, it's a big question as to how. It has to be aligned with the kind of um, what do you call this, tools available or being used by the student. But that brings me to another idea of, I read one guideline from one university. I think that's Cornell University. So one of my references, and it's very interesting in terms of assessment. Generative AI academic from Cornell University Task Force. So they developed their own guidelines. It's very clear there in terms of assessment. Again, bringing back the real time questioning or asking the student. Parang it's an interview type of assessment that they cited. That would be very helpful, and they would know really if the student is knowledgeable in certain topic, or their ideas being put in particular essay is really written by them. So there's a way by which they can they probe their student real time. All right, so this is just more of a guideline, sample framework. Next slide, please. So as to the building, so while we have all the information about what's going on outside, there are policies and policy framework that we can develop that can be contextualized in our own institution. Then we have to ascertain as well what kind of infrastructure are available before we'll be able to adapt certain AI tools, what could be needing. So there's a need to build the infrastructure for AI adoption as well. Next slide, please. So we have to check network bandwidth. I think it was discussed earlier as well by Ma'am Didit. Stability assessment, data storage capacity, scalability, security protocols, compliance measure, integrating capabilities with existing system. I just want to point out the data storage. Right now, while we are concerned with um, the ethical standards, the transparency, the accountability, and all that can be captured by comprehensive, if I may say, ethics guidelines. And I know in higher education, you have your ethics board. And we have developed, when I came here in CMU Inotech, since I left the academe, there has been an issue in the past about authorship. For example, when you publish who's the first author or some teacher, they make use of the information from the thesis of the students and then publish, while the student can be a co-author as well. Sometimes the teacher becomes the first author. But these are issue in the past. I know I hope it is already resolved. But then when I came here, I established the research ethics guidelines, and we are now, I'm very happy to inform that we are now on the process. We have revised it, incorporating the artificial intelligence, no, the use of AI in research. And I think there's the continuous improvement for this, because we want to be accredited so that we can serve as well as a review board, a review institution for the research that has being done in Southeast Asia, not only in the Philippines, but we are working on the accreditation process in Southeast Asia. Anyway, so because of that, in terms of data storage, it also been an issue and concern for every institution. There should be a concern for every institution on how you store your data. What capacity do you have in storing all the information, thesis, for example, dissertation of your students? And so that calls for if not data scientist, but at least the data manager. And we are having, difficulty on how data manager could really act. And I think we should also come up with guidelines, which we don't have yet, on how repository can be managed, data management in general. How do you share information? How do you get all the information and reshare? So again, there should be a mandate, or there should be a guidelines on how repository can be maintained, can be sustained, can be shared, and can be managed in general. So again, we don't have that guidelines yet, but we have that in mind on how data management can be done accordingly. Next slide, please. Am I over time? Sorry. So here we have these are sample, no, the report. Sorry. Excuse me. What's happening in the United, but this is a global north thing on how fast, they access or they use artificial intelligence in terms of percentages. And I have here some example of the free AI education resources for teachers. So you can screenshot and explore, but basically these are similar applications that was already applications that were cited earlier. All right, next slide, please. All right, so with here the data ethics for AI powered, I think I discussed already that there's indeed a need for ethics guidelines. Okay, until 11:45. Okay, that's good. I still have time. So the data ethics for AI-powered education. Okay, next slide, please. Sorry. So UNESCO came up with a recommendation on ethics of artificial intelligence. So we have to make sense of what are the values and at the same time the principles. So they already have guidelines, respect, protection, and promotion of human rights and fundamental freedom and human dignity, the values, environment, and ecosystem flourishing, ensuring diversity and inclusiveness, living in peaceful and just interconnected society. Anyway, I need not read, but vis-a-vis, what are then the principles, no? So for this are the recommendation on ethics and artificial intelligence as far as UNESCO is concerned. Pero if you want to have it contextualized, I think it's would be very, very important in your guidelines on what do we mean exactly, for example, by fairness and non-discrimination. Or when we say, for example, right to privacy and data protection, I would be I think it's very important to have a concrete instance wherein all these things can be um, applied. When we say transparency and explainability, how does that apply, for example, in doing research? So under transparency, so in our research ethics guidelines, we come up with our own we we have this what do you call this particular instance wherein we can see all these principles, the values, so that in the event that case arise about plagiarism, for example, we know how to deal with it because we sorry I'm sorry. By the way, we ask our collaborators, especially those outside outside our institution, outside the country, or even outside the region, to sign our research ethics guideline. So by virtue of signing that, and in the event that there are untoward incident about the output that they provide to us, we can easily go back. And then we have also another guidelines that cover there's another guidelines that address ethical issues. It's more of the guidelines not only within Inotech but for the international or different international. We share that particular guidelines with other international organization. We adopted that one we adopted. So once we have a consultant, we ask them to sign and read what's in there so that we can act accordingly if there are incident of, let's say, plagiarism or anyway. So again, the challenge is contextualizing, really putting all this principle in concrete terms. Next slide, please. All right, so you know this, the principle of responsible AI. So there has to be fairness, reliability, safety control, privacy, security, pursuit of human benefits, happiness. So these are more of generic principles for responsible AI. Next slide, please. So again, further, the challenges. So given all those development, or rather the different development going outside the or within the world, I mean, what's happening in the world, the region, and our country, there are different challenges that we could identify. Of course, AI ethical issues, bias in AI integration, computing power. That reminds me on what Dr. Rodrigo also mentioned about the machine learning. The machine learning itself has its own bias. That's why let's say as they put together all the information, the mere fact that all this information go together, while let's say Facebook, okay, so you could see you are being provided with all this information because of the frequency that you visited certain site or you ask for certain information or you focus on certain topic, so that is being provided. But if you can see in terms of bias, maybe to dig deeper on that, sometimes the cultural aspect is also influenced based on who developed particular tool. let's say, if you are like into, let's say personal information about relationship, for example. So if that machine learning has been developed in the perspective of developed countries or those in the global north, wherein divorce is, let's say, divorce or separation is rampant or being much favored. So you get more information to it. And that is really part of the bias of the algorithm itself. So these are some of the AI challenges. Again, I think in implementation strategies is also part of the bias, which I already mentioned. Again, the data repository, the data confidentiality is one of the challenges. How do we deal with that? Of course, expectation, discrimination, the lack of AI explainability, but I think this can be addressed more on having exposed everyone in the institution about artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. Okay, so given all those things, what are the ways forward or ways forward? Next slide, please. So sa practical roadmap, it would be good to conduct a thorough infrastructure assessment. So before we have or adopt certain AI tool, there's a need to conduct a thorough infrastructure assessment, develop a clear policies and procedure, whether how we use the infrastructure, or whether how we choose a particular tool, or whether how ethics and AI, or issues on ethics can be addressed. So there should be we should develop a clear policies and AI procedure, and this is part of what we call human in the loop. So dapat, I think kanina na-mention as part of the joke ni Dr. Rodrigo, hindi dapat tayo yung maging AI. So we use AI not for us to be used by AI. So with that, I think it's in my previous presentation, I used to emphasize that there should be human in the loop. And it's very important that the humans as teachers, administrators, our managers should be there in the decision making process in the very use of artificial intelligence itself, and even in the way of choosing or in choosing a particular AI tool. So it's really a matter of understanding a certain tool, anong role ko as a teacher given this, and ano lang yung role ni AI. And that is part of the so-called entire gamut of human in the loop. Hindi yung adapt, 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 accept, accept. Otherwise, tayo na yung AI ni AI. All right, implement pilot programs before full deployment. So yun, it's very important. I think DepEd people, for example, they're into action research. So it's very, if you have chosen based on the decision of the policy of your administrators, your bosses, your managers, what particular AI program is there, you have to use it, pilot it first if it is really effective before really adopting it. And that's why there's a need, as advocated in our the framework that we develop, this private-public partnership, or the partnership with developers, so that effective or useful really yung AI tools that is being done. All right, rather that is being used or being adopted or decided by the administrator, then establish ongoing monitoring and evaluation system. Okay, so this is important. Sometimes we adopt, but then useful ba we fail to monitor whatever we adopt, right? So I think it's not only for AI, but in general, there's a need to establish monitoring and evaluation. All right, next slide, please. Of course, for professional development, basic AI literacy training for all staff members, for all teachers, for administrators, advanced training for department heads and IT staff. Of course, there should be the one guiding the teachers, but our IT staff and heads should have an advanced training. And then regular workshop on new AI tools and best practices. I think this should be really in partnership with the industry and developers. And then, of course, peer-to-peer learning opportunities and support. So I guess matter really yung action research, or if it is in the context of DepEd, the Slack session, the LAC session. Now, I think it's Slack already, they changed the term, but it's important that teachers or practitioners are really sharing the information on how valuable or how useful, no, a particular tool is for their practice. Next slide, please. First, a reiteration for educational institution need clear policies on AI usage and data handling, which I think I articulated already earlier. What are the risks? So there should be risk assessment and mitigation strategies. How do we address the risk? How do we address cases wherein, let's say, plagiarism? What are the risks the student will plagiarize? That reminds me, in the class of my other daughter. So the particular teacher has, while there is a UPOU research ethics guidelines, no, ethical guidelines. This is actually fleshed out by that teacher. I was amazed. It was fleshed out by that teacher in his class. The teacher is a guy. So while there is an overarching rule from the university, it was further fleshed out by the teacher sa klase niya na yun, which happened to be enrolled yung daughter ko. So it's very important. It's very interesting, and at the same time, I think it's a challenge pa din on the part of teacher. While some of our tasks or your tasks can be automated and can be can be done using AI, but I think it's really the critical way and creative way of the teacher to concretize whatever policy is there within their own practice. All right, ethical guidelines for AI deployment, and then monitoring and evaluation. So it's more of a recap. And then next slide, please. Okay, so again, pathways to leverage AI for education. There's a need for governance, there's a capacity building, and of course, the teaching and learning. So the trajectory is from that of governance, guidelines, regulation side to capacity building, because teachers should be empowered of the different pedagogical approaches in line with the use of AI, and then of course the exact implementation in the teaching and learning process should be monitored, should be looked into. And of course, if possible, should be captured in the guidelines that you with higher education should be developing. All right. Or of course, even basic education. So how do we overcome the challenges? I think these are the ways wherein we can overcome the challenges. I think somehow establishing ethical guidelines, developing bias mitigation measures, work enhancing transparency. I think I somehow already discussed this, adapting a legal framework towards building trust, setting realistic expectations, protect data and maintain confidentiality, and conduct malfunction management. Of course, this should be captured by the governance, no, guidelines, governance framework, if you like, or they should be part and parcel of AI, rather framework on AI integration in the education system. All right, next slide. So I think I want to end with this. Embracing AI responsibly necessitates a conscious effort to be vigilant with the innovation it offers, while fostering ethical standards, establishing AI governance, and empowering stakeholders. So in doing so, collaborative efforts of the different education stakeholders must be strengthened, and most importantly, the guiding principles must be established in every school along with the paradigmatic approach to AI technology. With that,